W. K. Clifford's essay is called The Ethics of Belief, and for good reason. He wants to convince us that forming our beliefs in the right way is a matter of real ethical importance. As a non-voluntarist, Clifford claims that faith cannot and should not be a leap. It is not a completely free choice to believe in whatever we want. Instead, if we want to believe things, then we should do so only when it is supported by evidence. Clifford went even further because he claimed that if we believe something, then we have an effect upon society. And if we believe something wrongly, then we threaten the very fabric of society. Clifford begins with an example where the connection between belief and ethical considerations seems to be very strong. Here we have a ship owner who knows that his ship might need to be overhauled before the ship leaves port. However, he talks himself out of his doubts. He reminds himself that the ship has sailed safely many times before. He reminds himself that he believes in providence. In addition, he persuades himself not to distrust the shipbuilder and the contractors who have worked on the boat in the past. The ship sinks in mid-ocean, and all aboard it die. Clifford insists that the ship owner is morally responsible for the deaths of these people. His failing is clear. He let his beliefs be guided by things other than the evidence. Further, Clifford insists he would be just as guilty if the ship had never sunk. What makes the actions wrong are not the result. He had no right to believe that the ship was safe. It was wrong for him to hold the belief even if he were lucky enough to have nothing go wrong as a result. It might occur to you that what was wrong was not holding the belief. What was wrong was acting on the belief. Clifford agrees that even if my belief is fixed, I can control my action, and I have a duty to act in a certain way. For example, I have to have my ship checked before sending it on a long voyage, even if I don't believe there's anything wrong. But he thinks the original judgment still stands. If the belief was gained illegitimately, if it came about without relying on good evidence, then the person who holds the belief is open to moral criticism. One has failed in his or her duty. This is because belief is not simply disconnected from action. To hold a belief involves having some tendency to act in certain ways. And if I hold a strong belief without evidence, it will cloud my judgment when I try to carry out the duty of investigating facts carefully. Clifford also recognises that belief is not just a private matter. Our lives are guided by that general conception of the course of things which has been created by society for social purposes. Our words, our phrases, are common property. He calls them an heirloom, which every succeeding generation inherits as a sacred deposit and a sacred trust to be handed on to the next generation. Any case of believing for faulty reasons has the potential to infect and corrupt the system of belief that we all depend upon. Any such act weakens our self-control and our critical faculties. And carelessness about the evidence leads eventually to carelessness about the truth itself. Clifford sums up, it is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. The consequences for religion are clear. If Clifford is right, then believing in God without sufficient evidence, holding the belief as a matter of faith, is wrong. Clifford is well aware that we get many of our beliefs from society at large. Now, clearly no one is in a position to check every belief we come across. Clearly all of us have to rely on some beliefs that we will never be able to gather the evidence for ourselves. In fact, most of our general beliefs are of this sort, and history is an obvious example. The best I could do by way of producing evidence that the Battle of Hastings was fought in 1066 is to point to some book that records the fact. And that author in turn got her information from elsewhere. Our justification for these sorts of beliefs is very weak. It depends entirely upon other people. The fabric of belief is a social trust. We are constantly in the position of having to believe things on no more evidence than the fact that they are widely believed. Even things that are widely believed by experts may be false. Therefore, it must be sufficiently reasonable to believe a source. If I have a reason to trust you, I'm justified in believing you, even if you happen to be careless or even lying. More generally, things that are found in a wide variety of sources, for example, may have more hope of being true. Things that are believed by people who spent years becoming experts at are more likely to get things right than the casual commentator. But this still leaves us in the position of having to believe much more than we could ever have evidence for ourselves. Therefore, whilst it might be legitimate to take on faith a belief that is socially sanctioned or passed on from a trusted expert, I am not legitimate in holding a belief in something where I know that the evidence is shaky. If, like Barth or Kierkegaard, I believe in spite of everything, or I take a risk to believe in the unreasonable, then this really does threaten the fabric of our shared knowledge as a society. However, does Clifford have evidence that we would always need evidence?